Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, the 27th of January 1756 to 5 December 1791, was a prolific and influential composer of the classical period. Despite his short life, his rapid pace of composition resulted in more than 800 works of virtually every genre of his time. Many of these compositions are acknowledged as pinnacles of the symphonic, concertante, chamber, operatic, and choral repertoire. Mozart is widely regarded as among the greatest composers in the history of Western music. 1. With his music admired for its melodic beauty, its formal elegance and its richness of harmony and texture. Born in Salzburg, then in the Holy Roman Empire and currently in Austria, Mozart showed prodigious ability from his earliest childhood. Already competent on keyboard and violin, he composed from the age of 5 and performed before European royalty. His father took him on a grand tour of Europe and then 3 trips to Italy. At 17, he was a musician at the Salzburg court but grew restless and traveled in search of a better position. While visiting Vienna in 1781, Mozart was dismissed from his Salzburg position. He stayed in Vienna, where he achieved fame but little financial security. During his final years there, he composed many of his best-known symphonies, concertos, and operas. His Requiem was largely unfinished by the time of his death at the age of 35, the circumstances of which are uncertain and much mythologized. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was born on the 27th of January 1756 to Leopold Mozart, 1719 to 1787, and Anna Maria, née Pertl, 1720 to 1778, at Getreidegasse 9 in Salzburg. 3. Salzburg was the capital of the Archbishopric of Salzburg, an ecclesiastic principality in the Holy Roman Empire, today in Austria. He was the youngest of 7 children, 5 of whom died in infancy. His elder sister was Maria Anna Mozart, 1751 to 1829, nicknamed Nannerl. Mozart was baptized the day after his birth, at St. Rupert's Cathedral in Salzburg. The baptismal record gives his name in Latinized form, as Johannes Chrysostomus Wolfgangus Theophilus Mozart. He generally called himself Wolfgang Amade Mozart, 4, as an adult, but his name had many variants. Leopold Mozart, a native of Augsburg, 5, then an imperial free city in the Holy Roman Empire, was a minor composer and an experienced teacher. In 1743, he was appointed as the 4th violinist in the musical establishment of Count Leopold Anton von Firmian, the ruling Prince Archbishop of Salzburg. 4 years later, he married Anna Maria in Salzburg. Leopold became the orchestra's deputy Kapellmeister in 1763. During the year of his son's birth, Leopold published a violin textbook, Versuch eine Grundlichen Violinschule, which achieved success. When Nannerl was 7, she began keyboard lessons with her father, while her 3-year-old brother looked on. Years later, after her brother's death, she reminisced. He often spent much time at the clavier, picking out thirds, which he was ever striking, and his pleasure showed that it sounded good. In the 4th year of his age his father, for a game as it were, began to teach him a few minuets and pieces at the clavier. He could play it faultlessly and with the greatest delicacy, and keeping exactly in time. At the age of 5, he was already composing little pieces, which he played to his father who wrote them down. These early pieces, K1 to 5, were recorded in the Nannerl Notenbook. There is some scholarly debate about whether Mozart was 4 or 5 years old when he created his first musical compositions, though there is little doubt that Mozart composed his first 3 pieces of music within a few weeks of each other, K1A, 1B, and 1 degrees centigrade. In his early years, Wolfgang's father was his only teacher. Along with music, he taught his children languages and academic subjects. Solomon notes that, while Leopold was a devoted teacher to his children, there is evidence that Mozart was keen to progress beyond what he was taught. 10. His first ink-spattered composition and his precocious efforts with the violin were of his initiative and came as a surprise to Leopold, who eventually gave up composing when his son's musical talents became evident. While Wolfgang was young, his family made several European journeys in which he and Nannerl performed as child prodigies. These began with an exhibition in 1762 at the court of Prince-Elector Maximilian III of Bavaria in Munich, and at the imperial courts in Vienna and Prague. A long concert tour followed, spanning 3.5 years, taking the family to the courts of Munich, Mannheim, Paris, London, Dover, The Hague, Amsterdam, Utrecht, Mechelen and again to Paris, and back home via Zurich, Donaueschingen, and Munich. During this trip, Wolfgang met many musicians and acquainted himself with the works of other composers. A particularly significant influence was Johann Christian Bach, whom he visited in London in 1764 and 1765. When he was 8 years old, Mozart wrote his first symphony, most of which was probably transcribed by his father. The family trips were often challenging, and travel conditions were primitive. They had to wait for invitations and reimbursement from the nobility, and they endured long, near-fatal illnesses far from home. First Leopold, London, summer 1764, then both children, The Hague, autumn 1765. The family again went to Vienna in late 1767 and remained there until December 1768. After 1 year in Salzburg, Leopold and Wolfgang set off for Italy, leaving Anna Maria and Nannerl at home. This tour lasted from December 1769 to March 1771. As with earlier journeys, Leopold wanted to display his son's abilities as a performer and a rapidly maturing composer. Wolfgang met Joseph Myslivchek and Giovanni Battista Martini in Bologna and was accepted as a member of the famous Accademia Philharmonica. There exists a myth, according to which, while in Rome, he heard Gregorio Allegri's Miserere twice in performance in the Sistine Chapel. Allegedly, he subsequently wrote it out from memory, thus producing the first unauthorized copy of this closely guarded property of the Vatican. However, both origin and plausibility of this account are disputed. In Milan, Mozart wrote the opera Mithridate, Re di Ponto, 1770, which was performed with success. This led to further opera commissions. He returned with his father twice to Milan, August-December 1771, October 1772, March 1773, for the composition and premieres of Ascanio in Alba, 1771, and Lucio Silla, 1772. Leopold hoped these visits would result in a professional appointment for his son, and indeed ruling Archduke Ferdinand contemplated hiring Mozart, but owing to his mother Empress Maria Theresa's reluctance to employ useless people, the matter was dropped, and Leopold's hopes were never realized. 22. Toward the end of the journey, Mozart wrote the solo motet Exsultate, Jubilate, K.165. 1773–77, employment at the Salzburg Court, Tanzmeisterhaus, D. Salzburg, Mozart family residence from 1773, reconstructed 1996 after finally returning with his father from Italy on the 13th of March 1773. Mozart was employed as a court musician by the ruler of Salzburg, Prince Archbishop Hieronymus Colloredo. The composer had many friends and admirers in Salzburg, 23, and had the opportunity to work in many genres, including symphonies, sonatas, string quartets, masses, serenades, and a few minor operas. Between April and December 1775, Mozart developed an enthusiasm for violin concertos, producing a series of 5, the only ones he ever wrote, which steadily increased in their musical sophistication. The last 3, K216, K218, K219, are now staples of the repertoire. In 1776, he turned his efforts to piano concertos, culminating in the E-Concerto K271 of early 1777, considered by critics to be a breakthrough work. Despite these artistic successes, Mozart grew increasingly discontented with Salzburg and redoubled his efforts to find a position elsewhere. One reason was his low salary, 150 florins a year, 25. Mozart longed to compose operas, and Salzburg provided only rare occasions for these. The situation worsened in 1775 when the court theatre was closed, especially since the other theatre in Salzburg was primarily reserved for visiting troops. 2 long expeditions in search of work interrupted this long Salzburg stay. Mozart and his father visited Vienna from the 14th of July to the 26th of September 1773, and Munich from the 6th of December 1774 to March 1775. Neither visit was successful, though the Munich journey resulted in a popular success with the premiere of Mozart's opera La Finta 1777 to 78. Journey to Paris. In August 1777, Mozart resigned his position at Salzburg, 29 F, and on the 23rd of September ventured out once more in search of employment, with visits to Augsburg, Mannheim, Paris, and Munich. Mozart became acquainted with members of the famous orchestra in Mannheim, the best in Europe at the time. He also fell in love with Aloysia Weber, one of 4 daughters of a musical family. There were prospects of employment in Mannheim, but they came to nothing. 31, and Mozart left for Paris on the 14th of March 1778. 32, to continue his search. One of his letters from Paris hints at a possible post as an organist at Versailles, but Mozart was not interested in such an appointment. 33, he fell into debt and took to pawning valuables. The nadir of the visit occurred when Mozart's mother was taken ill and died on the 3rd of July 1778. There had been delays in calling a doctor, probably, according to Hallowell, because of a lack of funds. 36. Mozart stayed with Melchior Grimm at Marquis d'Épinay's residence, 5 Rue de la Chaussée d'Antin. While Mozart was in Paris, his father was pursuing opportunities of employment for him in Salzburg. 38. With the support of the local nobility, Mozart was offered a post as court organist and concertmaster. The annual salary was 450 florins, but he was reluctant to accept. 40. By that time, relations between Grimm and Mozart had cooled, and Mozart moved out. After leaving Paris in September 1778 for Strasbourg, he lingered in Mannheim and Munich, still hoping to obtain an appointment outside Salzburg. In Munich, he again encountered Aloysia, now a very successful singer, but she was no longer interested in him. Mozart finally returned to Salzburg on the 15th of January 1779 and took up his new appointment, but his discontent with Salzburg remained undiminished. Among the better-known works which Mozart wrote on the Paris journey are the A minor piano sonata, K310/300D, the Paris Symphony, No. 31, which were performed in Paris on 12 and the 18th of June 1778, 43, and the Concerto for Flute and Harp in C major, K299/297 degrees centigrade. Vienna 1781, departure in January 1781, Mozart's opera Idomeneo premiered with considerable success in Munich. The following March, Mozart was summoned to Vienna, where his employer, Archbishop Colloredo, was attending the celebrations for the accession of Joseph II to the Austrian throne. For Colloredo, this was simply a matter of wanting his musical servant to be at hand. Mozart indeed was required to dine in Colloredo's establishment with the valets and cooks. He planned a bigger career as he continued in the Archbishop's service. For example, he wrote to his father.
Marriage and children. After failing to win the hand of Aloysia Weber, who was now married to the actor and artist Joseph Langer, Mozart's interest shifted to the third daughter of the family, Constanze. The courtship did not go entirely smoothly. Surviving correspondence indicates that Mozart and Constanze briefly separated in April 1782. Mozart faced a challenging task in getting his father's permission for the marriage. The couple were finally married on the 4th of August, 1782 in St. Stephen's Cathedral, the day before his father's consenting letter arrived in the mail. The couple had 6 children, of whom only 2 survived infancy. Raymond Leopold, the 17th of June to the 19th of August, 1783. Carl Thomas Mozart, the 21st of September, 1784 to the 31st of October, 1858. Johann Thomas Leopold, the 18th of October, the 15th of November, 1786. Teresa Constantia Adelheid Friedrich Maria Anna, the 27th of December, 1787 to the 29th of June, 1788. Anna Maria, died soon after birth, the 16th of November, 1789. Franz Xaver Wolfgang Mozart, the 26th of July, 1791 to the 29th of July, 1844. Final illness and death. Mozart fell ill while in Prague for the premiere, on the 6th of September, 1791, of his opera La Clemenza di Tito, which was written in that same year on commission for Emperor Leopold II's coronation festivities. He continued his professional functions for some time and conducted the premiere of the Magic Flute on the 30th of September. His health deteriorated on the 20th of November, at which point he became bedridden, suffering from swelling, pain, and vomiting. Mozart was nursed in his final days by his wife and her youngest sister, and was attended by the family doctor, Thomas Franz Closet. He was mentally occupied with the task of finishing his requiem, but the evidence that he dictated passages to his student Franz Xaver Sussmayr is minimal. Mozart died in his home on the 5th of December, 1791, aged 35, at 12:55 am. The New Grove describes his funeral. Mozart was interred in a common grave, in accordance with contemporary Viennese custom, at the St. Mark's Cemetery outside the city on the 7th of December. If, as later reports say, no mourners attended, that too is consistent with Viennese burial customs at the time. Later Otto John, 1856, wrote that Salieri, Sussmayr, Van Swieten, and 2 other musicians were present. The tale of a storm and snow is false. The day was calm and mild.